There was nothing in that tote but a dead woman, Corinne. She set it in a driveway, in April light, with her car door still open and the radio still going. I didn't answer her. I didn't cry. I stood on the concrete with my purse against my hip and let the sentence finish landing. My son-in-law was 6 feet away with a bag of softener salt on his shoulder. He was waiting for me to come apart. Everybody in that driveway was waiting for me to come apart, and I had never once given anybody the show. I looked at her a while. Then I said, "Say it again, slower." She didn't say it again. Now, I know how that sounds. A woman my age, losing an argument in a driveway about a plastic box. And she was right about the box. It was gone. 8 tapes, 16 years, 1 promise, hauled off on a Saturday with the lawn chairs. But my daughter had left her voice somewhere none of those people had ever set foot. It had been sitting there the whole time, cataloged, paid for, on a metal shelf 3 blocks from that driveway. By the end of that spring, my granddaughter heard her mother talk to her from before she was born, and her father still does not know who put those tapes in the ground. He is not going to find out from me.
Josie?
I've had a year to decide whether that makes me a coward. My name is Corinne Tillotson. This story doesn't start with the tote. It starts on a Tuesday in March of 2008, in a little room with carpet on the walls. My daughter Tessa was 26 that spring and 7 months along. She had a job at the co-op office, a husband named Neil, and 2 hours every Tuesday that belonged to nobody but her. The Kessel County Library ran a reading service back then. Volunteers sat in a booth in the basement and read the local paper out loud onto tape, and the tapes went out in the mail to people who couldn't see to read it themselves. 4 pages of a small town, read slowly by whoever showed up. Tessa showed up for 3 years. I never heard a minute of it. That wasn't how it worked. You read, the tape went in a mailer, the mailer went out the door. She used to come home Tuesday nights and say the same thing. I read the whole obituary page and didn't cry once. And some weeks she'd say, "I cried." That was the extent of it. It was the least important thing about her, and I have thought about it every day for a long time now. The tapes I did know about were the other ones. When Tessa found out she was pregnant, Neil bought a camcorder at the pawn shop on 4th for $90. For 8 months, those two filmed everything, and I mean everything. Her standing sideways in the bathroom mirror, Neil assembling a crib upside down, the two of them arguing about whether a baby could hear the vacuum. She wrote on the lid of the tote in black marker, in handwriting that leaned hard to the right. "Baby tapes. Do not open until she's 18. Neil, I mean it." She was 26. She thought 18 years was a joke you'd get to laugh at later. People ask me what my daughter was like, and I always answer with something she did instead of something she was. She kept a list on the refrigerator of every person in Bellamy who had ever done her a kindness. It was not a sweet little project. It was a working document. If Verlene Ott brought over a hot dish, Verlene Ott went on the list, and inside of 6 weeks, something went back to Verlene Ott's porch. She ran her gratitude like a mail route. She was also a bad driver, and she could not carry a tune in a bucket. That's who was in that box. Josie was born on the 9th of May. Tessa died on a Wednesday in October of 2010, on the county road out past the elevator, coming home from my house. She was 29. Josie was 2 years and 5 months old and had a fever that night, which is why Tessa had come over in the first place, and I have never once been able to leave that fact alone. So, 16 years. Josie turned 18 on the 9th of May this year. And in January, at Neil's kitchen table, I asked him for the tote. "I want to get them put on a stick," I said. "The whole set. There's a man in Waterloo does it. $40 a tape." Neil did the math out loud and winced. "That's $320, Ma." "It's what I've got the money for." He'd called me Ma since he was 24, and he kept calling me Ma after he married Rhonda, and I never corrected either of them. "They're in the basement," he said, "on the shelf by the water heater." Take them whenever. I didn't take them whenever. That was mine to carry, and I have carried it since. I had a reason that made sense at the time. If I'd hauled that tote out in January, Josie would have known it existed by supper time. Somebody would have let it slip. And Tessa wrote a number on that lid, and the number was 18, and I had gotten stubborn over the years about giving my daughter the one thing she asked for. So I told Neil I'd come get them in April, 6 weeks before the birthday. Plenty of time for a man in Waterloo. I went on the 11th of April. Neil was in the driveway with the salt. Rhonda's car was running with the door open, the way she always left it, radio going, like the errand was going to resume any second. The basement smelled like it always did, cold cement and dryer sheets. The shelf by the water heater held a dehumidifier, a case of motor oil, and Josie's grade school workbooks. No blue tote. I stood down there in my coat for a good 3 minutes and made myself look at every shelf in that basement before I went up. "Neil?" I said from the top of the stairs. "Where'd the tote go?" "What tote?" "Blue one, Tessa's tapes." He set the salt down. "It's on the shelf." "It isn't." And Rhonda, from the car, not unkindly, in the voice of a woman answering a question about a casserole dish, "We cleaned that basement out in April." "It is April. First weekend, before Easter." She got out of the car then. "Corinne, we hauled 6 loads. There was a tote of encyclopedias. There was a tote of his mother's curtains. It was labeled." A lot of things were labeled. Neil said, "Ma, it'll turn up." And he said it the way men say things when they need a conversation to stop. That was when she said it. Not screaming. Not cruel, even, if I'm being fair, and I've had a long time to decide how fair I want to be. She said it the way you'd say a thing you'd already said to yourself 200 times in the shower. There was nothing in that tote but a dead woman, Corinne. I want to be honest about what I did next, because it wasn't brave. I got in my car. I drove the 11 blocks home. I sat in my own driveway with the engine off for long enough that my neighbor Dale Hovey came out to see if I'd had a spell. If you've ever been handed something to keep for somebody who couldn't stay and keep it themselves, tell me what you did with it, down in the comments. I've read every one of these, and I know I'm not the only woman who's been left holding a box. I want to tell you I got angry that afternoon. I didn't. I got busy. There's a difference, and at 72, I've stopped pretending it's a good one. I made a list that night on the back of a church bulletin, because that's the paper that was on the counter. Storage unit, church, attic, camcorder. I worked the list for 9 days. The storage unit was first because Neil had rented one out on Highway 63 for 2 years after Tessa died, when he couldn't stand the house. I called the number on the sign. A young man told me the account had closed in 2013 and the contents had gone to auction for non-payment of $312. "Do you keep a list of what was in it?" "Ma'am, we keep a photo of the door being opened." He emailed me the photo. It was a photo of a door being opened. The church was second. Bellamy First Methodist keeps a cabinet of VHS tapes from every Christmas program since 1988, which somebody's husband dutifully filmed and nobody has ever watched. I went through the whole cabinet on a Wednesday, with the fellowship hall lights buzzing over me. I found Tessa at 11 years old in a bathrobe playing an innkeeper. No sound on that camera worth the name. You could hear the furnace and a baby crying somewhere in row 4 and the general roar of a room, and under all of it, a girl saying words I could not make out. I sat in a folding chair and watched 11 seconds of it 4 times. My attic was third, and by then I was not being thorough. I was doing the thing you do when you've lost your keys and you open the freezer. There was a box up there marked Tessa in my own handwriting. It held her confirmation dress, a bundle of report cards, and 41 ornaments, because I had put the Christmas things in with her things one year when I couldn't manage 2 trips. The camcorder was fourth. That one I actually thought might work. I sat in my kitchen and pictured it. A tape left in the chamber, the way there's always one shell left in the gun. I called Neil. "That old thing?" he said. "Ma, that died before Josie could walk. The little door wouldn't shut. I want to say I put it out with the—" He stopped. "With the what, Neil?" "I don't remember." He did remember. He just didn't want to be the one holding it. There was a fifth thing I never wrote down. I called the man in Waterloo to tell him not to expect me. His name is Sherwood, and he is about my age, and he runs the whole operation out of a converted garage with a window unit going. 8 tapes, you said. The little ones? They're gone, I said. There's nothing to bring you. Gone how? Landfill. He was quiet for a second. Well, he said, that's the ball game. I suppose it is. I'll tell you what I tell everybody, for whatever it's worth this late in the day. It's never a fire. 31 years I've been doing this, and I've had maybe 4 fires. I could hear him moving something heavy. It's always a cleanout. Somebody dies, or somebody moves, or somebody finally gets sick enough of the basement. And it always goes out on a Saturday. Every time? Every single time, Sherwood said. The good stuff always goes out on a Saturday. So that was the list. 9 days, 5 lines, and a photograph of a door. In between, I kept noticing things I had been polite about for years. Tessa's photograph. The good one, the one from the co-op picnic where she's squinting and laughing with her hand up, used to sit on the mantel in that house. It's in the upstairs hall now, past the bathroom, at the end where the light doesn't reach. It has been there since 2019. I know the year because I helped Rhonda paint that hall. I hung that picture back up myself. She said, "Oh, let's put her where Josie sees her every morning." I said, "That's a nice thought." I meant it. And I hung my daughter in a hallway. The recipe box went in 2019 too. Tessa's, tin, with the rooster on the lid. Rhonda took a load to the Goodwill in Oskaloosa and mentioned it afterward the way you mention weather. I kept the ones that looked used, she said. There were about 6 with the corners all soft. 6. Out of a box. I want to say something here that does me no credit. Every one of those was a small thing, and I let every one of them go. Rhonda was the woman raising my granddaughter. I had decided very early that I would rather be welcome in that house than be right in it. You make that trade 100 times and you don't feel it. Then somebody hauls 6 loads to the county dump and you find out what you traded. I am going to put one other thing here, because it belongs in the middle of that list and not at the end where it would look like an argument. The winter Josie was 13, her friends turned on her. It was the ordinary kind, the kind that happens on a telephone at 11 at night, and it went on for about 2 months, and she started locking her door. I came over at 6 one morning in February to run her to school because the roads were bad. Rhonda was asleep on the floor of the upstairs hallway with her back against Josie's door and a blanket over her legs. She had a work shirt on. She'd been there all night, and she got up when she heard me on the stairs and she was embarrassed about it. And she said, "Don't tell Neil, he worries," and went down to start the coffee. I stood at the top of those stairs, and I was jealous. I want that on the record, too. 72 years old, and I could not have gotten up off that floor, and I knew it. And I was jealous of a woman who could. On the 20th of April, Josie came over after her shift and ate a bowl of cereal standing at my counter, still in her fairway polo. She's built like her father, which is to say tall and hunched about it, and she has her mother's ears, which is a stupid thing to notice for 16 years, and I've noticed it every day. "Grandma, can I ask you something weird?" "You can ask me something weird." She turned the bowl around a couple of times. "Do you know what my mom sounded like?" I had a dish towel in my hand. I kept hold of it. "Yes." "Like, was she loud?" "Kayla's mom is loud. When she yells for her from the porch, you can hear it at the pool." "She wasn't loud," I said. "She was fast. She talked fast when she was happy and slow when she was lying." Josie laughed at that. And then her face did something I did not care for at all. "I don't have it," she said. "Like, I have pictures. I know her face better than I know yours, probably, no offense. But I don't have—" She tapped the counter twice. "I don't have that." "I know. Dad says I heard her every day for 2 years and it's in there somewhere." "Your dad says a lot of things to make himself feel better." "Yeah," she ate another bite. "Is that mean?" "It's accurate," I said. "Sometimes those overlap." And then she asked me the question I had been driving around town for 9 days to avoid. "Is there a video, like, of her talking, anywhere?" I lied to her. I'd like it noted that I did it fast and smooth and without any struggle at all, which tells you something about me. "There's some being worked on," I said. "For your birthday, don't ask me any more about it." She lit up like the porch light. "Grandma!" "Don't ask me any more about it." She hugged me from the side the way she does, 90% elbow. She said, "Okay, okay, okay," into my shoulder. Then she left with a granola bar out of my cupboard, and I stood in my kitchen and did the arithmetic on how much time I had bought and what I had bought it with. 19 days. That night, I did not sleep. I sat up with the light on and thought about the word Rhonda used. She hadn't said throughout. She hadn't said lost. She'd said hauled. She'd said 6 loads. You don't say loads about a garbage can. Kessel County has one transfer station, out past the fairgrounds on a gravel apron. If you have more than your cart will hold, that is where it goes. I called the county solid waste office on a Monday morning and asked a woman named Charlene how a person disposes of 6 loads. "Are you cleaning out a property?" "I'm asking how it's recorded." "Oh, everything's ticketed," she said, happy to have an easy one. "You come across the scale in, you dump, you come across the scale out. Weight, date, name on the account, $18 minimum charge, then it's by the ton." "Name on the account," I said. "Sure, most folks have a punch card." I thanked her and hung up. I put my coat on over my nightgown, which I mention only so you know what kind of morning it was, and then made myself go back and get dressed like a person. I drove out there at 9:30. The scale house is the size of a bedroom, with a window on both sides and a space heater going year-round. The man inside stood up when he saw me coming across the gravel, and then he stood up straighter. "Mrs. Tillotson." "Denny Waller," I said. "You've got gray in your beard." "I've got gray in worse places than that. I was the secretary at Bellamy Elementary for 34 years. That job is not typing. You hold the whole building in your head. Who has an inhaler? Whose mother is in the hospital again? And who is not to be told about it? Denny Waller was a boy who came to my office window at 10:40 every morning for 2 years because there was no lunch money on his account, and we both agreed to keep that between us. He is 41 now, and he runs a scale. I need to ask you something, and it's going to sound strange. Okay. On the 4th of April, or thereabouts, my son-in-law brought loads out here, Neil Brannock, Delaware Street. Denny's face didn't move much. I remember. You remember a specific load from 3 weeks ago. I remember that one. He turned to the computer and did something with a mouse that took no time at all. I stood at that window with my hands in my coat pockets and my heart going like a bird in a box. April 4th, he said. 2 trips that day, 2 more on the 5th. Household. 1,140 pounds on the first one. Whose name? He looked at me then. He was deciding something. Accounts in his name, he said, but it wasn't him driving. Denny. It was a woman in a red Equinox. Both days. I made myself breathe. Can I have it? The ticket? I can print you the account activity. It's public record if you want to be technical about it, and I'd rather just hand it to you than be technical about it. He printed it, 2 pages, fed out slow, and the machine made that noise they make. He folded them once and passed them through the window, and I took it and put it in my purse and said thank you, and I was already turning away when he said the rest. Mrs. Tillotson. Yes. There was a blue tote. I stopped on the gravel. I only noticed because of the writing on the lid, he said. It was up on top of the load, and I read it while she was backing in. Do not open until she's 18. He rubbed the back of his neck. I thought it was a gag, like a time capsule kind of thing. Then she pushed it off the edge with her foot. Her foot. Both hands full, he said quickly. It wasn't, I'm not saying it was anything. People push things with their feet out here all day. Where does it go, Denny? Pit. Then the pit gets loaded out. That one'd have gone to Eddyville that same week and been covered. Covered. That's the word for it, he said. I'm sorry. There's not a version of this where somebody goes and finds it. I said thank you again. I got back in my car. I did not cry there either, because Denny Waller could see me through the window, and he had already carried enough on my account. I drove to the fairway because I needed bread, and because it is on the way home, and because I have found that my legs will keep doing errands long after the rest of me has quit. Rhonda's Equinox was in the second row. I want you to understand that I did not lie in wait. I put my bread in the cart and my milk in the cart. Then I stood in that parking lot at 11 in the morning next to a red Equinox. 16 days is not very long. I am 72, and I have started being honest about how many mornings I've got left to spend. She came out with a case of pop under her arm. She saw me and her whole body changed shape. Corinne, you drove it out there yourself, I said. She put the pop in the back and shut the hatch and stood with her hands still on it. Neil doesn't know, she said. I didn't ask what Neil knows. He was at work both days. I'd been asking him for 4 years to go through that basement and he wouldn't. And it wasn't a basement anymore, Corinne. It was a... She stopped and started over, quieter. You've been in that house. I've been in that house. Her coat is still on the hook by the back door. I know. 16 years. Her coat. She laughed, one note, not a nice one. I have hung my coat on top of a dead woman's coat every day since 2015, and I have never once said a word about it, to him or to that girl or to you. Some of that was true. I knew it was true while she was saying it. You saw the lid, I said. She didn't answer. Denny Waller read it off the top of the load while you were backing in. He read it from 12 feet away. So you saw it. The parking lot did what parking lots do. A cart went by, somebody's radio. I saw it, she said, and you pushed it off the edge with your foot. Don't. I'm not raising my voice, Rhonda. I want you to notice that. I'm not going to. I moved my grocery cart out of the way of a woman trying to get past us, and I said thank you to her, and then I turned back. Say the rest of it. You've had it ready since April. And she said it. Same as the driveway, only tired instead of sharp. There was nothing in that box but a dead woman. There were 8 tapes, I said, of a 26-year-old girl talking to a baby who wasn't born yet. That baby is going to be 18 in 16 days. She has never heard her mother's voice, not once, not 1 second of it, and now she never will, and you knew that when you put your foot on it. Rhonda's chin went, just once, and she got it back. What do you want me to do? She said. It's done. What do you want? I have thought about that question every day since. Nothing yet, I said. I put my groceries in my trunk. I drove home. I put the bread in the box and the milk in the door and the 2 folded pages in the drawer under the phone, the one with the tape and the batteries and the church directory. 16 days, and nothing to play for her. I did not stop working on the birthday. That wasn't strength. I had told Josie there would be something, and there was going to be something, even if the something turned out to be a poster board. So on the 24th of April, I went to the Kessel County Library to use the microfilm. I was after the co-op picnic photograph. It ran in the register in the summer of 2007, and I have the clipping, but the clipping has been on my refrigerator since 2007 and looks it. I wanted a clean copy off the film. Bernice Kolar was at the desk, which is where Bernice Kolar has been since Reagan. "Corinne Tillotson," she said, "you want the film." "I want the film." Third drawer, don't let it spool onto the floor like last time. Bernice is 61 and has a laugh like a screen door. We ran the school's story hour together for 9 years. I'd bust them over, she'd read to them, we'd count heads twice and lose one anyway. I got the picnic photo. Then, because the machine was warm and the basement of that building is the coolest place in Bellamy in April, I stayed longer than I needed to. Bernice came down at some point with a hand truck and started stacking metal. "What in the world are you doing?" "Killing the shelving," she said. "Man's coming Thursday from the AEA to take the machines, and the shelves are going to scrap. It's the last of the reading room." I said, "The reading room?" "The talking book service. Before your time, well, no, right in the middle of your time." She wiped her hands on her cardigan. "We ran it out of that back room until 2014. Volunteers reading the paper onto cassette, mailing it out to the blind list. Then the state went digital, and we were the last county in the district still licking stamps." The film reel kept turning. I remember the sound of it, and I remember that I did not stand up right away. "Bernice." Tessa read for that." She stopped with a shelf bracket in her hand. "Tessa read for that," she said slowly. "Tessa read for that." We looked at each other across a basement. "Bernice, what's in the back room?" There were 400 and some cassettes in the back room. They were in gray cardboard trays on 2 metal shelves against the boiler wall, and they were labeled with a date and a set of initials and nothing else. Because the point of them was never to be kept. They were mailed out, they came back, they got recorded over. That was the whole design of the thing. You put a voice on a tape, and then next week you put a different voice on the same tape. "Not all of them got recycled," Bernice said. She was already pulling trays. "When the grant money came in 2009, we had to keep masters for the audit. 2 years of masters. That's this whole bottom shelf, and I have not touched it since Obama." "How do we know which are hers?" "The log." The log was a green accounts ledger with a rubber band around it, and it lived in a drawer with a stapler that hasn't worked since the 90s. Volunteer name, date, page count, hours. Grant money means somebody has to write things down. Bernice ran her finger down a column and her finger stopped. "T. Brannick," she said. "October of 2006. She kept going. Her finger kept stopping. "T. Brannick, T. Brannick, T. Brannick." She turned the page. "Corinne, she's on nearly every Tuesday for 3 years. She's got..." Bernice went to the back and did some arithmetic on the inside cover with a pencil. 111 sessions. I sat down on a milk crate in the basement of the Kessel County Library and put my hand flat on the cement floor for a minute. Bernice let me. Then we started pulling trays. Here is what I had not thought about, and it cost us 4 days. A basement is a basement. That boiler wall runs hot in the winter and sweats in the spring, and cassettes are plastic and glue and a ribbon of tape thinner than an onion skin. Bernice brought down a machine from the AV closet, an old gray deck with a handle on it, the kind we used to check out to teachers. We ran the first tape with her initials on it. It hissed and it whined, and about 9 seconds in, it made a sound like a zipper and stopped. "Warped," Bernice said. "The pack's warped." The second one played 11 minutes of nothing, blank, recorded over in 2011 by somebody with the initials RM. The third one broke inside the housing. We did that for 4 days. I would come at 9 and Bernice would keep the door propped. We sat on milk crates in the cold with a tray between us and a wastebasket beside us. I would hand her a cassette. She would put it in. We would wait. There is a specific way your chest behaves when you have hoped 40 separate times in one morning. On the fourth day, the 28th of April, 11 days before the birthday, Bernice put in a cassette from a tray marked Spring '08 Masters, and the deck did not whine. There was a room tone. A chair creaked. Somebody cleared their throat about a foot from a microphone, and a young woman said, "Bellamy Weekly Register, March the 11th, 2008, page 1. Bernice hit stop so hard the tray jumped. I was standing up. I don't remember standing up. "Is it her?" I said. Bernice had her hand over her mouth. "Bernice, is it her?" "Corinne, you know it's her." "I want you to say it." "It's Tessa," she said, and then she said, "Sit down, honey, you've gone a color." I did not sit down. I went up the stairs and out the side door into the parking lot and stood between two cars in the wind for about 4 minutes. Then I came back in and I told Bernice Kolar the only thing I had decided for certain in 3 weeks. "Don't play any more of it." "What?" "Check that they play, that's all. Put in each one and count to 5 and stop it and write down whether it runs." I had my hand on the doorframe. "I'm not going to be the first one who hears my daughter." "That's not mine." Bernice looked at me for a long moment. "That's a hard thing to give away," she said. "It's not mine to keep." There were 9 that ran clean. 9 Tuesdays out of 111, out of a basement, out of a shelf that was going to scrap on Thursday. Bernice put them in a beige mailer she found in the supply cabinet, one of the old ones, still printed along the bottom edge in block letters. "Free matter for the blind and handicapped." "They mailed 1,000 of these out of this building," she said. "Might as well use one more." She wrote Josie on it in marker. I called Neil on the 1st of May. "There's something for Josie for her birthday," I said. "It's at the library. It has to be there, it can't come to the house, and it's going to take about an hour." There was a pause on the line long enough that I could hear his television. "Ma," he said, "did you ever find the tote?" The drawer under my telephone was 11 feet from where I was standing. 2 folded pages, an account name, a weight, a date, a woman in a red equinox on both days. "No," I said. "I'm sorry. I know. "Saturday at 7, I said. "Wear something with a collar." The Kessel County Library is closed at 7 on a Saturday. Bernice propped the side door by the book drop with a rubber wedge and stood there in her good jacket like a woman receiving guests. They came in Rhonda's Equinox. I watched them pull in from the window. Neil got out. Josie got out, in the green dress, with her hair done by Kayla and about $9 of glitter on her eyelids, because 18 is 18. Rhonda stayed in the car. I went down the walk to her window and she rolled it down about 4 inches. "You should come in," I said. "I'll wait." "Rhonda." I said I'll wait. "Suit yourself." I straightened up. Then I bent back down because there was one more thing and I have never been able to leave a thing unsaid just to make a point. "It's an hour. It's cold. There's coffee in there that Bernice made at 4 o'clock and it's terrible. Come in when you want to." The back room still has carpet on the walls. Brown, industrial, glued up in 1979 to kill the echo, and it has been quietly falling off in one corner ever since. There's a table, a chair, a boom stand with no microphone on it anymore, and a window into the next room the size of a cake pan. Josie stood in the doorway and looked at it. "What is this?" "Sit in the chair," I said. She sat in the chair. Neil stood behind her with his hands on the back of it. Bernice sat at the table with the deck and the tray and her reading glasses down. "Josie," I said, "your mother volunteered in this building for 3 years, every Tuesday from 6 to 8. She sat in that chair and she read the newspaper out loud into a microphone, and they mailed the tape to people in this county who couldn't see to read it themselves." Josie's hands were flat on her knees. "I never knew that," Neil said. He said it to nobody. Ma, I never knew that." "You knew she went out Tuesdays." "I thought it was—" He stopped. I don't know what I thought it was. Bernice pressed the key. Room tone. The chair creaked, the same chair, and Josie felt it creak under her at the same time, and her whole back went rigid. Then a young woman said, "Bellamy Weekly Register, March the 11th, 2008, page 1. Josie made a sound I am not going to try to spell. She had done the arithmetic before the second sentence. March of 2008. She was born on the 9th of May. "That's her," she said. "That's Dad. Dad." "That's her," Neil said. His voice was gone. Tessa read page 1. There had been a fire in a machine shed on Q Avenue and no one was hurt. She read the way she always talked, a half step too fast, and she corrected herself twice and did not apologize either time. She read the obituaries, 4 of them. She read every survivor by name and every town they lived in. When she came to a woman who had been a school cook for 31 years, she paused for half a second before she said the number. The way you do when a number surprises you. She read the school lunch menu for the week of the 17th. Chicken patty, corn, peaches. And then she got to the market page, which is grain prices, which is the single most boring paragraph that has ever been set in type. Corn, beans, a basis figure, a delivery month. She was 11 words into it when she stopped. There was a breath, not a big one. The kind you take when something has happened that is nobody's business. And my daughter said, very quietly, off to the side of the microphone to no one, "Okay, I felt that." Then 2 seconds of nothing. Then, in her reading voice, exactly as before, "Nearby elevators are bidding $3.89 on old crop corn." That session runs 40 minutes. I have since been told the exact figure, 40 minutes and 11 seconds, and I have never needed anybody to tell me which 2 of them. Josie did not move for the rest of the tape. She sat in her mother's chair in a green dress with her hands flat on her knees. She listened to a dead woman read grain prices for 11 more minutes. When the tape ran out and the deck clicked, she said one word. Again. Bernice rewound it. "No." Josie put her hand out. "Just that part. Can you get just that part?" Bernice found it in about 40 seconds, which is a long 40 seconds, and none of us said anything during it. Okay, I felt that. Again. Okay, I felt that. She played it 6 times. Somewhere around the 4th, Neil left the room. I found him afterward in the biography aisle with his back against the shelf and his hand over his eyes, 48 years old, making no noise at all. On the 6th time, Josie turned around in the chair and looked at me. "That was me," she said. "She's talking about me." "Yes." "She stopped reading the newspaper because I kicked her." "Yes." And then she just went back to the corn. She laughed. It came out wrecked. "She just went back to the corn, Grandma." "That's your mother exactly," I said. "That is the most your mother has ever been in one place since 2010. Josie put both hands over her mouth and cried the way you cry at 18, which is with your whole body. I stood there and did not touch her. There is a kind of crying a person needs to be left alone inside of, and I have learned the difference the hard way. Bernice went out and shut the door. I turned to follow her. Rhonda was standing in the doorway of the outer room. I don't know how long she had been there. Long enough. She had her keys in her fist and her coat still on, and she was looking past me at the back of a girl's head in a green dress. I have thought about her face a great deal since. I'd like to tell you it was guilt. It wasn't, quite. It was the face of a woman doing a sum she had been avoiding for a month, and getting the answer. She didn't say anything to me. She went back out to the car. There were 9 tapes. Josie has all 9. Put them on a stick for her too, and on her phone. And I have a copy in the drawer under my telephone in a beige mailer with her name on it in marker, in case the world ends. 1,140 pounds went into a pit in April, and 40 minutes of my daughter came out of a basement in May, And both of those things are true, and neither one of them cancels the other. Neil called me on the Monday after. He called to say thank you, and he said it twice. And then he did the thing men do where they keep a call going for 10 minutes after the reason for it is over. Josie had played the tape down the phone to his mother at the fountains, and Marlene had cried and then asked who it was. The school wanted Josie to say something at graduation. The storm windows needed doing. I was standing at my counter with the drawer under the telephone open. I had opened it while the phone was still ringing, and I have no good account of why. My hand stayed on those 2 pages for the whole conversation, the way you keep a hand on a railing. "Ma," he said, "I keep coming back to that tote." "Do you?" I should have gone through the truck before it went out. Rhonda ran 4 of them loads by herself while I was at the shop, and I never once looked at what was on there. He laughed at himself. Great husband, lousy inventory man. A date, a weight, a name on the account. A woman in a red Equinox, both days. "There's no telling," I said. "No, I guess there's not. All right, I'll see you Saturday." I shut that drawer after he hung up. It took me a minute to get around to it. Neil came to take my storm windows down on the last Saturday in May. He does it every year. He does it badly, and he does it every year. And I have never once hired anybody else, because a man who shows up in May for 16 years is worth more than a straight set of windows. Rhonda came with him. So did Josie. That is worth saying plainly. Rhonda had not been in my kitchen since April. She came in and set a pan of bars on my counter and said, "They're the ones with the pretzels." I said, "Well, good." That was the entire negotiation. Josie had been living on those tapes for 3 weeks. She had them on her phone. She had played the grain price one for Kayla and for her manager at the Fairway, and for a boy who was not Trent and was an improvement. She had also, being 18 and being her mother's daughter, started asking better questions. She was leaning against my refrigerator with a bar in her hand when she asked one. "Dad, were there other ones?" Neil had a screwdriver in his teeth. He took it out. "Other what?" "Recordings of Mom." She licked her thumb. "Because that one was random. She just happened to be doing a volunteer thing. So was there ever, actual home video of you guys?" The kitchen got quiet in the particular way kitchens do. Neil put the screwdriver on the sill. "There was a whole tote of it," he said. I watched my granddaughter's face open like a door. "There was a camcorder," Neil said. "Your mom was pregnant with you, and we filmed everything. And I do mean everything. And she boxed it all up and wrote on the lid that nobody was allowed to watch it until you turned 18. He was smiling. It was a terrible thing to have to watch. 8 tapes. Your grandma was going to get them all put on a stick for your birthday. She was going to spend $320 on it. "Where is it?" "That's the thing, honey. We can't find it." "What do you mean you can't find it?" "It was in the basement, and then it wasn't. We cleaned that basement out in April, and—" He shrugged, and the shrug was the worst part, because there was nothing in it but a man who genuinely did not know. "Stuff got hauled. It's a long time ago now." Josie turned around. She turned around and she looked straight at me. And she was not asking her father anymore. "Grandma, do you know what happened to them?" Rhonda was at my sink with her back to the room and her hands under the water, and she had stopped moving them. There is a drawer 11 feet from where I was standing. It has the tape in it, and the batteries, and the church directory, and 2 folded pages printed on a Monday morning by a man who used to come to my window at 10:40 because there was no lunch money on his account. I could have had it open and on the table in 4 seconds. I had run it in my head about 200 times by then. I knew exactly how the room would go. I knew Neil's face, and I knew what he'd do with it. And I knew that whatever happened after would happen inside the only house my granddaughter has. She only has the one. I am 72 years old. I don't get to be at the other end of this. "They were lost in the cleanout," I said. The water started running again at my sink. "That's so unfair," Josie said, and her eyes went, and she wiped them with the back of the hand that had the bar in it. "That's so stupid and unfair." "It is. Sorry, I know I got a lot. I know I got more than I had." "You're allowed to want the rest of it," I said. "Wanting the rest of it doesn't make you greedy. It makes you hers." Neil went back to the windows because he had to do something with his body. Josie sat down at my table and ate her bar and asked me what her mother's handwriting looked like, and I got out the report cards from the box in the attic, which was the good thing that came out of that afternoon. Rhonda dried her hands and went out to the porch. I gave it about 10 minutes. Then I went out too, and I shut the door behind me. She was on the top step with her arms folded. "Why?" she said. "You know why." "I don't." "Then I'll say it out loud once and we're not doing it again." I sat down on the glider because my hip had had a day. "If I put those 2 pages on that table, Josie gets to be right about you. She's 18. She'd take it and she'd carry it and she'd use it. She'd be at war in her own kitchen for the next 10 years. Every time she pulled up her mother on that phone, she'd be listening to her in a house where she's at war." Rhonda didn't turn around. "And hear the rest of it because it isn't a kindness," I said. "I'm 72. I've got what I've got. I am handing you the rest of my granddaughter's life on purpose, with my eyes open, because she needs you more than she needs to be right. Corinne, I'm not finished. I have seen you asleep on a floor for that girl. That is the only reason we are having this conversation on a porch instead of in a kitchen, and I would rather chew glass than say it out loud twice." She put a hand over her mouth. "You will never have to say you're sorry out loud. Not to him, not to her, not to anybody at that church. You get to keep your entire life exactly as it is." I looked at the back of her head. "That's what I bought, and I'd buy it again tomorrow. And I don't think one thing better of you than I did on the 11th of April." She stood there a while. "I would have," she said finally. "If it was mine, I'd have told her." "I know you would," I said. "That's the difference between us, and it isn't a compliment to either one of us." She went down the steps and stood by the car until Neil was done with the windows. Bernice did not scrap the shelving on the Thursday. She called the man from the AEA and told him the machines were spoken for, which was not true when she said it and was true by the end of the week. She kept the deck, she kept 2 trays, and she got a woman from the Historical Society to look at the rest. Volunteers go down there Tuesday nights now and put the old sessions on a computer. 206 of the 400 still play. 31 different readers, most of them dead, reading a small town's news to people who couldn't see it. 22 more of my daughter turned up in that pile. There's nothing in any of them. Weather, a bond issue, a hog operation somebody was mad about. Josie has listened to every one. She went down in June to help Bernice with the typing, and she never stopped. And last fall, she signed up with the reading service out of Ottumwa, which is the same thing with better equipment. Tuesday nights, 6 to 8. She reads the obituaries. I asked her once why she picked that page, since a 19-year-old could pick any page in the paper. "Because it's the one where you say people's names," she said. "Somebody's got to say all of them." That's not a thing I taught her. I want to be careful about taking credit here. She got it out of a basement. Now the other part. Neil apologized to me at Christmas, at the sink, with his hand on my arm. "I should have gone through that basement myself, Ma. That's on me." "You couldn't have known," I said, and I said it in the right voice. Rhonda did the hauling. I did the not telling. I don't get to file those in separate drawers. And there is one more piece, and it is mine, and I have never said it to anyone in my family. I had that tote from January. Neil told me to take it whenever. "Take it whenever," he said, at his own kitchen table, in January. I could have carried it out to my car that same afternoon and driven it to Waterloo in February and had 8 sticks in a drawer by the 1st of March. I didn't, because a woman wrote a number on a lid in 2008, and I decided I was going to honor it down to the week. I was being faithful. That's the word I used for it in my own head all those months, and I used it right up until the 28th of April, sitting on a milk crate in a basement. Rhonda put her foot on that box. But it sat on that shelf for 11 extra weeks because I wanted the date to be perfect, and it wasn't loyalty that kept it there. It was pride. Those two are very good at wearing each other's coat. So when I tell you I chose not to hand over those 2 pages, understand what else was in the drawer. The last thing happened in September, and I did not find out about it for 2 days. I was over there to drop off a casserole, and I came in through the front for once instead of the kitchen, and I stopped in the front room because Tessa was on the mantle. The co-op picnic photo, squinting, laughing, hand up. In a new frame, a plain wood one, the kind you get at the drugstore for $11. Josie came in behind me with the dish. "Oh yeah," she said. "Rhonda did that, like last week? I came home and it was just there. Did she say anything about it?" "No," Josie thought about it. "She asked me if the frame was okay. That was it." That is the entire apology I have ever received, and I am not going to pretend it is enough. And I am also not going to pretend it is nothing. It cost her something to carry that picture down a hallway and put it in the middle of a room she has to live in. Her coat still hangs on top of Tessa's coat by the back door. 16 years in mine, both of them, and I don't have an answer for that one either. The 2 folded pages are still in the drawer under my telephone. I could tell you I burned them in the wood stove, and that would make a better ending. People like a fire. But a thing you burn was a temptation. A thing you keep in a drawer 11 feet away for the rest of your life is a decision you make again every morning. And I would rather make it on purpose than have it made for me by a stove. I'd do it again. I'd do it tomorrow. If you've ever held the thing that would win it for you and set it back down, not because you were weak and not because you forgave anybody, but because you did the arithmetic on who would pay for you being right, then you know there's no ceremony for it. Nobody claps. You just go home and put the bread in the box. Josie is 19. She has 20-some hours of her mother reading a newspaper to strangers, and 2 seconds of her reading it to her, and 8 tapes she will never see. She is not going to learn from me that the last 2 have anything to do with each other. Those 8 are under 40 feet of a county's garbage in Eddyville, and they are not coming out. The 2 seconds are here because a librarian licked stamps and a grant made somebody keep a ledger, and nobody ever thought the dull recording was worth throwing away. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. If this one found you somewhere tender, share it with the person who'd understand it without you having to explain, and tell me, in the comments, what you're still holding that you decided not to use. I read them, I do. Subscribe if you'd like to stay. There's a new confession here every day, and I'll see you in the next one.